We'll talk about that with on international relations. It's a not for everyone. So let's say there is a question on a very simple question on a very simple question. Are we in the third world war? In the third world war, or is the situation conducive for the beginning of a third world war? If this is the kind of topic that is asked you. Now, it does not matter whether you say yes or no. You say yes or no. The tone of your essay, it may be that you agree with this statement that yes, we are in the third world war, and then you have a lot of arguments. We are in the third world war, and then you have a lot of arguments to favor that. But then you might also say, no, we are not in the third world war. That yes, there are a lot of wars happening, but it's not the world war. Then you have arguments in that favor. But what sets your essay apart is how you have presented it. Now for this, there are certain frameworks. So why are ideas necessary? They are the foundation. So let's say you have no idea. आपको पता ही नहीं है ये थर्ड वर्ल्ड वॉर के बारे में क्या बोल, क्या ये वाकई में चल रही है, नहीं चल रही है. At least you should have certain idea. Anyone who has no idea about what to write on this, you can raise your hand. It's fine. So each one of you has a name. If you have a structured thought process, like I was just taking some interviews in the panel, and I found out that in most of the cases, and this goes back to the last year's boot camp and before that, in more than 80% of the cases, when we ask a question and the answer is presented, it is mostly haphazard. Very rarely does it happen. Like, for example, I remember one student, he was from agriculture background. His father was a farmer. Okay, yes.
So when this is posed, the examiner is aware that this is not an objective topic. So what they are testing is your blue side thinking, how out of the box you can think, and how you can generate content out of thinking, and how you can generate content out of thinking.
Exactly. Very well. Anything you would like to add to this?
There is my interpretation of like blue can be seen as calmness and red can be seen as impulse and red can be seen as impulse. Then we can justify the topic blue is better than red.
No, that is fine. That's you're discussing content. But why would they ask you these kind of statements? It can be anything. The statement can be life is what you make it. The statement can be my life, my rules. Why do they ask such abstract topics? What are they trying to judge from the candidate when they ask these topics?
Our analytical skills, like
All right.
Analyze things from our perspective, and we can connect better. We can connect these things with the world that are given.
Mic closer.
So that we can connect. How do we connect things that are given?
Okay. So if any abstract thought is thrown at you, how can you make sense out of that? That ability is being tested. It can be flipped. Red is better than blue. Then they expect you to speak on that. Like, think about those kind of debate competitions or elocution competitions in college and universities where they flip the topic. I remember I once participated in one of these competitions where they gave us two different perspectives of a topic. You are speaking in favor of should women be given reservation. So you are speaking in favor that yes, women should be given reservation because of this. And they hit the bench and you are like, no, women should not be given reservation because of this. Again they hit, then again you have to take a pro approach. What is the ability that is being tested here? Your ability to understand both sides of the equation and make sense out of it. Basically, if you are able to see the other side of the perspective, then you have a well-rounded personality. Then you are accommodative to various views. That is what is being tested in abstract topics. Said that, last year we have seen all the IIM's topics. I have those with me right now. Abstract topics are almost negligible now, which is a good thing. They are now mostly asking you topics about should India host the Olympics of 2036, the role of AI in future, India as a $5 trillion economy. These topics are easy to speak about because you have content on that. But in case you are given an abstract topic, then this is the ability of yours that is being tested. Political and economic, India's path to a $5 trillion economy. If you come from a finance background, fine. Even if you don't come from a finance background, it's a very simple topic. India's path to a $5 trillion economy. We'll come to that, how you can generate ideas. I'm just giving you examples from the last. Ethical dilemmas. Is bribery ever justified? Is bribery ever justifiable? Or it can be, what would you prefer? What would you prefer? An efficient but corrupt officer or an inefficient but honest officer? Let's discuss about this. If they ask you, if there's a government official, if the official is inefficient but is honest, but on the other hand, there's a person who is efficient but corrupt, what would you choose and why? Would anyone like to answer that? You can try, it's fine. Should I repeat the question? Are you brainstorming? Okay, now let's see how do you need to think over it. On one hand, I'm saying, do you need an honest and inefficient officer? Honesty, efficiency. On the other hand, corruption, inefficiency. So honesty and dishonesty is a character trait, not easily trainable. Honesty and dishonesty is a character trait. You cannot train that easily. But efficiency and inefficiency are trainable traits. So your answer should always be, आपने कभी सुना भी होगा, hire for character, train for skills. This is a mantra. Any company, any good company, they hire you for your character and train you for skills because skills are trainable. So your answer should always be, I'll choose an honest but inefficient officer because honesty cannot be taught. Efficiency can be. And also you can say that dishonesty is the biggest inefficiency in itself. So it's like saying, when you say, would you hire a dishonest and efficient officer? So inefficiency and efficient officer. That is the equation. Right? So how did you structure this? That what is changeable and what is not. So if you have an ethical dilemma, you always think about what is it that can be changed easily and what is it that cannot be changed easily. That is how you think about it. For example, here is bribery. That is how you think about it. For example, here is bribery ever justifiable? Ever justifiable? Ever. Bribery itself is morally. Is it ever justifiable? No, it's not. If you have any correct, is bribery ever justifiable? No, and then you explain that. Any counter to this statement, if anyone has, is bribery ever justifiable? If you say yes, give me one scenario. Yes.
So in case there is a discrimination towards a certain sex person and he's not admitted to a hospital and it's an emergency. And the doctor demands some bribery. So in that scenario, giving the bribery to save the life of the patient could be taken.
Correct, absolutely correct, Hayes. Anyone else? Any other scenario? So when I said that there is no exception, all of you accepted that. There are actually a lot of exceptions. Is bribery ever justifiable? Accepted that. There are actually a lot of exceptions. Is bribery ever justifiable? In certain scenarios, yes. Because time is irreversible. So sometimes to make the best of that situation, you may need to bribe. It happens. In government, it is acceptable. Under the Prevention of Corruption Act, for example, it is allowed that you have paid the bribe and later complain to the authorities. It is allowed that you have paid the bribe and later complain to the authorities. Because then you can justify that at that time, I had no other choice. For example, to save the life of someone. So, how do you see whether bribe is justifiable or not? Time is irreversible. Some situations are irreversible. So if in that time, in that situation, you go ahead with it and later seek remedy. There are so many people who bribe the officials, get their work done, and later complain. And there is remedy for that. No one is going to, the authorities are not going to come after you कि तुमने पहली बार में bribe क्यों दी थी. That's not the thing. They can justify by saying कि उस time मेरे पास कोई और चारा नहीं था. Irreversible situation. Again, something structure is something similar to the first. What is it that is not changeable? You cannot bring time back. You cannot bring opportunity or that's later. So is bribery a now can you generate any example similar to his? So that was like
Hello. Hello. Okay. So this is not in regards to the bribery question, but the efficient officer and the honest officer.
yeah.
In that case, we can point to the fact that the trade-off is very important. What is the inefficient officer or the efficient officer? What is the inefficient officer or the efficient officer giving to like the greater economy more good in the long run? For example, if you have a corrupt officer who like the scale of corruption is at Watergate level, then that is unacceptable because it is generating so much misery in its way. But say you have in a lot of countries which are developing or underdeveloped, you have monopolies. It is very clear that people are corrupt. But this is the only way that an efficient system or some means is provided to the populace, so it is justifiable.
No, फंस गया. So ideologically, when you say that the level of corruption matters, कि अगर थोड़ी कम corruption भी है कभी-कभी वो चलेगी. Scale of corruption, no, that's not a good answer. Well, they will of course drill you on that. You have to take an ideological position here. That bribery is like corruption is not justified at all. But you cannot say that it depends on the level of development of the country. That it's an underdeveloped country, so scale of corruption कम होना चाहिए. या फिर developed country है तो थोड़ा बहुत चल जाएगा. That's not. Because once you open the door a bit, if the door is ajar, it will be opened completely. You cannot give that leeway.
Pain to the other country.
Pain to the other country.
People bragging. So you want country like nation or a
Okay, so in that case, it is justifiable. So spying, for example, espionage you're talking about. Okay, the national interest is there. So if the interest is larger, then it is justified. That's what you're saying. Oh, perfect example. Perfect example. Yes, so let's say India has its spies in Pakistan, for example, and those spies pay some Pakistani to get some secrets out of Pakistan, which are going to help India as a nation for its national security. So if there's a larger purpose that it serves, then it might be justified. Right? Pretty well, pretty well. Social, impact of social media on society. Now, this is one classic example, impact of social media on society, that if there are 100 answers, will be 100 different answers. Impact of social media on society. But how you can structure it? I'll give you some models that we will apply on these topics. Last is contemporary AI and the future of jobs. Right? These are some of the previous year topics. Now these are some frameworks. First of all, mind mapping. You try to think of the connections between the ideas. For example, impact of social media on society. What is the examiner trying to find out? They have not asked you about impact of social society. You have to tell. So keywords are very, very important here. That's the first thing you remember. Because the moment you give it any narrow interpretation, you get less marks. So impact of social media on society. We generally think about Indian society पे उसका क्या impact? No. Then the topic would have been impact of social media on Indian society. So you take every word literally. That is the first thing that you do. Secondly, now this is the 5 W's and 1 H approach. Impact of social media on society. What? What is the impact of social media on society? Like what are they talking about? Impact. Now again, impact can be positive, can be negative. In essay, they do judge how broad you're expecting to go very deep. They expect you to go broad. So when you're saying impact of social media on society, some people might end up writing only the negative impacts because that's what it usually conveys. You'll say that the screen time has increased, mental health issues are rising, comparison, FOMO, this and that. You'll mention all that. But would you even think about all the positive impacts that social media has on society? Perhaps not. Or even if you mention, they would be like one or two here and there. But the impact word should give you an idea that it's a neutral word. Right? So impact of social media on society, a good essay on this would tell the positive as well as negative impacts on society. Then who? So who means stakeholder approach. Impacts of social media on society. Now in this topic, what is a who? A who means impact on women, impact on children, so both the stakeholder approach. Impact of social media on teenagers, impact of social media on elderly. The other day I was reading this article that negative impacts of social media are society. So don't confine it to Indian society. So in where you think about the global society as a whole. For example, news about social media, if they must have put in to ban something. In the countries where, I mean, fundamental rights and access to resources and information is so much valued, they are banning information for a particular group of people. That means there is a lot of research in Australia that has pointed to the fact that the ill effects of social media up to 16 years of age outweigh the positive impacts. The reason is impressionable age it is. People get very impacted. A lot of it's almost in the hands of everyone. Now, if you have any data to quote here, it's a plus. For example, in India, we are a country of 1.5 billion roughly. And roughly 800 million people have smartphones and access to internet. Of course, not all of them are on social media, but the number is increasing very fast. So, why are we discussing about it? Because it is becoming a bigger and bigger issue because of internet penetration and because of smartphone penetration. How is social media impacting society? Then you can discuss all the other positives and negatives. By using this approach, the 5 W's and 1 H approach, you can attack the topic from 360-degree dimensions. This is the first good approach that you can come up with. Because see, the time to ideate, the time to think and to write, I think you get 20-25 minutes for writing an essay, mostly, right? So apply this approach and think, if you can even think of 1 point each, who, what, where, why, when, and how, just 1 point each, you can write a very good essay. 5 W's and 1 H approach. This is the first model that we have. For this, of course, you need to be well versed with current affairs. For example, Australia example, or anything else that's going on. Quite helpful if you have a good hold on current affairs. Right? Now, this is a very general topic, impact of social media. It can be specific, like the Third World War thing. So you need to know some examples from current affairs. Because if you write a very simple write-up on, let's say you say that yes, we are in the third, or no, we are not in the Third World War, but you do not mention at least 2 or 3 wars currently underway in the world, the Russia-Ukraine war, or the Israel-Palestine example, or India-Pakistan Operation Sindoor, or let's say anything happening in the Middle East. If you don't give these examples, and then the impression is that you don't know anything. We are not in the Third World War. You need to mention those wars. To say that these are standalone, events, and they are not necessarily a global war. Then it's mention the wars themselves. Then the examiner gets an impression. He's going to pata hi nahi hai. That's why in Express there is a feature called Explain. If you can just read Indian Express explained articles every day, there are like 5 to 6 articles. One article takes roughly 8 to 10 minutes to read. If you can read 1 hour every day, you will have enough ideas. This one, the weaknesses of Indian economy, the weaknesses of Indian economy, the opportunities that lie ahead, and the threats that there are. Right? If it's a very straightforward topic, can India become a $5 trillion economy? So let's say, tell me any 3 strengths that yes, India can become a $5 trillion economy. Although I personally feel that this is now an outdated topic because we are already on the way to become a $5 trillion economy by next year itself. right? The question now should be, can India become a $10 trillion economy by, let's say, 2032 or 33, or maximum, let's say, 2035? That should be the new topic. But okay, let's just stick to the, that should be the new topic. But okay, let's just stick to the, tell me any 3 strengths that you can write in this essay, that yes, India has these strengths with which it can become a $5 trillion economy. How will you approach this? You can raise your hands. 3 strengths. 3 strengths. Yes.
A large demand.
Sorry?
A large demand.
I'm not able to hear.
A large demand.
Large demand base. All right. All right, very well. Yes.
And in the manufacturing sector.
Manufacturing sector, you say. All right. Yes. Manufacturing sector, you say. All right. Yes. Youngest working population, very well. Yes. Startup culture, very well, very well. So now, to those of you who do not have much knowledge of finance, these are very good answers. They're very good answers. But how would you approach this topic? So, do not think about strengths of Indian economy. Think about what an economy is made up of. Think about what an economy is made up of. What are those three things that if they are good in any economy, that economy will grow? Why is it that we are overtaking all the other economies? 10 years ago, we were the 12th largest economy. Now we are the 4th largest. So what are the other countries doing? Aren't they trying to grow? They are also trying to grow. So we have surpassed UK, we have surpassed Germany, and over the next year we will surpass Japan to become the 3rd largest. What are all those countries doing? Aren't they adhering to the basic fundamentals of economic growth? There are structural problems that those countries have, or maybe not structural, maybe we have certain advantages that we are growing fast. That is actually the answer, right? It's like all of you are going on a highway and we are like overtaking all those countries, which are actually way better than us. Can you compare India's overall, infrastructure and everything with Japan or with Germany or with UK? Of course not. With Japan or with Germany or with UK. Of course not. We are way developed. Population, the point that you mentioned, demographic dividend, that is one. Young population, it's a very good strength, which is something that we have, they don't have. Japan's population is aging, Germany's population is aging, and so does UK. Young population, good manufacturing, that's a very good point, and that we have a lot of demand because we have the largest population in the world. These are very good points. And there can be, I think, 10 other points which you can fairly mention. The idea is that don't go beyond 3. If you mention all the strengths that we have, then it will not be a well-rounded essay. Right? Stick yourself to 3. Weaknesses. So the topic is, can India become a $5 trillion economy? We have listed 3 strengths. Now there are 3 weaknesses that probably weaknesses overpower the strengths. We may not be able to reach. Concentration of power in a few hands. But that doesn't dilute the topic. It is possible that in India, some industrialists have a lot of money. Still that increases India's GDP. From the topic. Not be a very good point.
A lot of people are losing jobs.
Okay. Okay, not a major point though. Yes, dependent on China. Okay, that's a trade development point. Same. Yes, good point. Anything else?
Aging population.
Aging population? Not yet.
And mortality is increasing in India.
No. Just for the sake of creating points, don't write incorrect information. You can simplify the information. That's fine. So let's say you do not know the term demographic dividend. You can say India has a lot of young people. That is acceptable. But you cannot say India has an aging population. No, it does not. India's average age is 29. This does not. India's population has not. No, 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 no. Can be better. Okay, so what are the three weaknesses? We have a lot of trade deficit. That means we import more than we export. That is one point. Second point can be rupee is depreciating. Okay, that's a good point.
Hitesh, then Gurbani, Ankit, Raghav, Smidhi, Rudra, Swati, Vishesh, और आर्यन.
All right. Another weakness, any other weakness that anyone can tell me? There is one thing that we always keep criticizing in India. India में ये अच्छा नहीं है, ये अच्छा नहीं है. Infrastructure, specifically which kind of infrastructure? Because in the last few years we have seen a lot of improvements in physical infrastructure, roads, airports, railways, and this and that. Lack of skilling is one thing, and lack of social infrastructure is one. Social infrastructure means schools, colleges, hospitals. We have seen a very good level of improvement in physical infrastructure, but not so much in social infrastructure. And all the countries which have been developed, they paid equal attention to their physical as well as social infrastructure. Right? So you can take up these weaknesses. But if we do these three things right, if we arrest the slide of the rupee properly, if we are good in trade, if we skill our people well, and if we, let's say, invest in social and physical infrastructure, then they are no longer weaknesses. Opportunities. That these are three areas where the scope of improvement is massive. Because just imagine, we are saying that we are going from fifth to fourth to third largest economy. What are those countries doing which we are overtaking? Isn't Germany thinking about it? Isn't Japan thinking about it? Or UK thinking about it? But they don't have the same opportunities that we have. What is that opportunity? Again, one of the strengths can be mentioned here, young population. That's an opportunity that we have. Any others? China plus one strategy, okay, is that many developed countries are not willing to trade or do business with China because of their opaque policies or because of their dictatorial tendencies. So whatever work goes out from China, most likely will come to India. That belief. So for example, if US is not willing to manufacture iPhones in China, then the factories are moving towards India because India is a democratic country, more free economy, things like that. Okay, anything else? What opportunity do we have? Sorry? What in technology? Semiconductor chips we are manufacturing, all right. So you mean innovation in technology if we are doing? Very well. This is an opportunity, right? Threats. This is tricky. What are the threats? These are the things that can stop us in our tracks if we are growing. Sorry?
For example, changing
Political instability, you are saying. All right, political instability, which will lead to policy paralysis, probably. Yes, that's okay. Political change. Yes, so policy continuity is not there. Very well. So there is, you said climate change, political instability. Absolutely, absolutely. Geopolitical factors. So, for example, recently India has suffered losses to the tune of 20 to 30,000 crores just because of tariffs by Trump. The textile industry in Surat is facing crisis, and we think that these are very, like, very, the effects are very far off. ऐसा होता नहीं है. So, for example, Punjab's farmers are facing the threats. How? Because Punjab exports a lot of basmati rice to various parts of the world, but that is also under tariff. So Punjab's farmers are facing the heat. Surat's textile manufacturers are facing the heat. 50% tariff has been imposed on us. So geopolitical factors can be a big threat. Right now, you must be, reading in the news that Trump is asking India to stop buying oil from Russia, to stop doing this, stop doing that. So geopolitical factors can stop us in our tracks. Secondly, there is political instability inside the country. And third, of course, things like climate change. So climate change impacts India a lot because India is primarily an agrarian society. Not an agrarian economy, agrarian society. Because GDP का सिर्फ 13-14% ही agriculture से आता है. But then the people dependent on agriculture are roughly 50% of India's population. So उसका climate change है direct impact. If 1 year there is, there's a heat wave, extended heat waves, it leads to tons of food grain production in India. So climate change is a threat to us, geopolitical scenario is a threat to us, political instability is a threat to us. So if you have 3 ideas each, that is SWOT analysis, and you can apply it on anything. You can apply it on social media. What are the strengths of social media? Weaknesses, opportunities that social media has, social media can pose. Right? Give me an example of any other topic where you can apply SWOT. Straight topics. If the topic then there are other approaches for that. Think about one example: opportunities and threats. Yes? De-dollarization of economy. Okay, take it.
Impact of AI.
Impact of AI, right? Very well. Right? BRICS. तो किसी भी global organization पे it applies. Yes. Any topic specific. India's education system, India's healthcare system. If there is anything posed to you in a question format, like is India going to become a $5 trillion economy? Anything as in a question format, you are expected to analyze it. And how do you analyze it? By looking at all the possible dimensions: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay. Next approach is pestle approach. We also call it field tree, but that's a bit long. So pestle approach. Pestle approach is usually not for straightforward topics. They are for complicated topics. Pestle approach: political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal dimensions. Should India host the 2036 Olympics? You can go with the SWOT analysis as well. You'll see that these are the strengths of India, that it should host Olympics. These are the weaknesses, these are the opportunities, these are the threats. You can go with that approach. But you can also do this approach, that if India hosts 2036 Olympics, which city are we bidding for 2036 Olympics? Ahmedabad, right. Abhi tak wo approve nahi hua hai, but that's what we have bid for. So if we are hosting 2036 Olympics, what will be the political impact of hosting that Olympics on India, internally as well as geopolitically? So for example, if we host 2036 Olympics, internally, the political party, whichever gets that hosting right, and if it does it well, then it will add a lot to their credibility. Geopolitically, it will add a lot to India's credibility. Because we have a reverse example. We were not able to hold Commonwealth Games 2010. It scams during those games. For example, एक scam बहुत अजीब था that there was a Commonwealth Games village set up in Delhi. Right? And for that, of course, the global athletes came there to stay. Roughly 10,000 athletes were there. Now, in government procurement and tendering, I'll give you one example and you can imagine the impact. If the sports persons are staying there, who are all world-class pro-level sports persons, they need gym equipment, right? They need to train for about a month there. To procure treadmills, for example, on rent. And the rent of the treadmill 5 times the cost of the treadmill for 1 month. So if one treadmill can be bought by the government for 1 lakh rupees, it was taken on rent for 2.5 lakh rupees for 1 month. And after that, it went back to the owner. Now, so this is just one example. So that whole tune of the Commonwealth Games scam was roughly 10,000 crore rupees. So when this scam came out, it was found that many of the things, so many of the things that were used during those games were bought or taken on rent at a very inflated price. So many government officials polluted, and they filled their pockets, whatever. 2036 Olympics. You have politically, this is how it can benefit, how it can enhance India's image or reduce its stature simultaneously. Economic impact of hosting 2036 Olympics. Now, wherever Olympic Games are hosted, about 5 to 6 million global tourists visit that place. Why do you think all these Middle Eastern countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they are hosting their FIFA World Cup is held roughly a span of 1 month, 10 million tourists. And going further in the future, there are so many more expected to come that no single country is able to handle that many tourists. For example, the next FIFA World Cup 2026 and 2030, there are so many people expected to visit, 30 to 40 million people, 3 to 4 crore people, that the hosting is now divided among multiple countries. So next FIFA is going to be held in Canada, US and Mexico. The next after that is going to be held in 6 different countries, 3 in Europe, 3 in South America, right? So economically, it's a huge prospect. If any one of you has ever been visit, you will see the scale of infrastructure development that's going on there, because the bid is going to be made in 2027. So we have to fulfill certain commitments that we have this much hotel rooms, we have this much roads and a metro network and this and that. Only then our bid will be accepted, otherwise it will not. So economically, there's a lot of scope by hosting an Olympics. Socially, now I would like you to speak over this. India hosting 2026 Olympics, what are the social impacts, positive as well as negative, that can be expected? Yes, anyone? First, let's talk about positives. All right. Okay, we can promote our okay. Yes. Global image of India can be improved. You know, Qatar as a country has been one of the worst implementers of human rights in the world. But they hosted the 2022 FIFA World Cup so pretty well. So global image somewhat got whitewashed. You know, it's called, there was a term used, I don't remember right now. Like we use greenwashing. That's called sports washing, something like that. That they hosted this event and they made, like, their entire effort was put into creating Qatar's image the world over. कि वहाँ पे कोई ऐसा incident ना हो जाए. So they were all the Westerners, they were wearing all kinds of clothes, there were all the liquor flowing in Qatar, which they don't allow otherwise. All the human rights were absolutely valued, no stray incidents, no crime, nothing. So their entire effort was on that. So if we are hosting the Olympics, it is a chance for us to showcase our, you can say, society and our culture to the world. That's very positive. That is politically, that is the benefit to the political party whichever is in power at that time. But so as a society, India can project its image onto the world. Okay, one negative impact it can have. Yes. If some bad incident in India at that time goes out, technologically, depends how. The idea is that if you apply pastel approach on any topic, it's not necessary. So if you are hosting Olympics 2026, technologically, I don't think there's anything specific you can mention. Right? So you leave it. It's जरूरी नहीं कि आपको 6 के 6 dimension बताना है. You can leave the technological and legal dimensions. अब इस पे कोई apply होगा, कोई नहीं भी होगा. So these two approaches are usually reserved. Specifically, the SWOT is reserved where it is asked in a question form. Is India going to become a 5 If it is a bit complex, pastel analysis, like on social media topic, pastel analysis is a good analysis that you can make. Okay. Then this last approach, ACD approach, it's very simple. Whatever topic you have been given, you analyze what topic it is, you categorize it into aspects. For example, let me take a real topic from last year. Should India make friends with its neighbors? ये टॉपिक आया हुआ है IIM कोलकाता का. Should India make friends with its neighbors? Categorize its key aspects. Now, would you apply SWOT analysis on it? Would you apply question approach on it? Would you apply 5 W's 1H approach on it? Should India be friends with its neighbors? That should India be friends with its neighbors? No, you should say, of course, yes. Because, so you better learn to live with them. Right? अगर हमारा वैसे हमारे पड़ोसी का झगड़ा हो जाए, you can just change your home or you can make them change theirs. But in geopolitics, that's not possible. So you have to learn to coexist. So if you say no to this essay's theme, then you are like, it's like you have not understood the topic correctly. Should India make friends with its neighbors? Absolutely yes. Then what you have to discuss in the essay is all the benefits that India will get by becoming friends with its neighbors. Now, if you apply pestle approach here, let's say, what are the political benefits to India by becoming friends with neighbors? What are the, let's say, economic benefits? What are the social benefits? Technological benefits? Environmental benefits? Legal benefits? Pestle approach will apply this. Right? Are you getting this? Then third is develop arguments with examples. Now, this will be good. Economically, this will be good. If you have an example for each one of these dimensions, that completes your essay. For example, should India be friends with its neighbors? Yes. Politically, or let's say economically, it will be very beneficial to India because cross-border trade will improve, people-to-people exchange will improve, we will get easier visas to those countries, and they will get easier visas to ours. Right? Economically, it will be very beneficial. For example, now if you have any example of this, so let's say India's tourism to Bhutan might increase, जो अभी बहुत कम हुआ है, and simultaneously there's a lot of tourists from these countries that come to India every year. Right? So example, by taking the name of a real country in that example. So if you can put these 6 perspectives in this topic in your essay, each with one example, your essay is complete. This is the framework you can apply. Any doubts? If anyone has? Yes?
In this topic, when we take a stance, rural stance, like some of our neighbors, we have tried historically to have good relations with them, but there is also not as well.
Yes, of course. You can mention that there is a red line, that no country should cross, of course, national security and sovereignty. So if China is encroaching on our borders, that's a red line. If Pakistan is exporting terror to India, that's a red line. So should India be friends with its neighbors? Yes, but there is a red line which no neighboring country or any other country should cross. Of course, you can mention that. You can write out, absolutely you can write. Okay. We have discussed this, right? So now 5 W's and 1H approach, SWOT analysis approach, pestle approach. Now once a topic is given to you, you understand the topic type. If it's a straightforward topic, you apply the 5 W's and 1H approach or SWOT approach, either of these. Match the scope of the framework with the topic. This is where it takes all the time. So ideally what you should do is, any topics comes up to you for essay, apply all the 3 approaches and see where you have the most number of ideas. Any topic it can be. It can be a topic on AI and the future of jobs. Think about it. How will you treat this topic better? Right? So for at least 3 to 4 minutes, you have to just think which approach applies there. That is the entire trick. Because actually it can be written by all the 3 approaches. 5 W's, 1H, SWOT, pestle. But at that point of time, the maximum amount of ideas that you are getting, वो वाली approach आपको follow. Simple as that. Check the breadth of analysis needed. So if they are asking you impact of social media on society, the breadth is not much. They are just asking you impact of social media on society. Right? Identify the desired outcome. What is the examiner expecting from you? Is the examiner expecting a very key outcome? For example, $10 economy, there is a specific outcome. But then impact of social media on society, you can just mention anything, good, bad, ugly, right? Anything you can mention. So whenever a topic comes up to you, you apply these approaches, at least 3 to 4 minutes of brainstorming you need, and after that you choose the approach depending upon the number of ideas or the quality of ideas that are coming.